Why do you cycle?
I cycle because I'm competitive in nature.
Winning a bike race is better than sex.
I cycle for fitness.
I cycle because I'm addicted to it.
I'm 41 years old now. I've got 2 kids, married. I'm a lawyer. And it's nice to have something that you're passionate about as a sport. And I think it's rare to have a sport that involves teamwork. To be, this age as an adult and be able to be passionate about a team sport is pretty nice.
To be out there with friends and just the camaraderie of fellow cyclists is just great.
I do it for the competition, and through the years of racing, from a junior cyclist up through professional ranks, I've gotten to see many parts of the world and the country that I never would have seen otherwise, and meet people from all over the world. So it's just an exciting sport that has a real thinking man's aspect to it as far as road racing goes, and keeps you fit and young, and it's fun.
I got into cycling because I really wanted to take a break from work, and I took a sabbatical and rode my bike across the country. And after I did that, a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to join a cycling team and race, and I didn't know anything about racing, but I figured, well, here's my chance. No one's going to ask me to be on their team again, so I'm going to take this opportunity and do it. And I just loved it. It was a great opportunity, and I've been racing for 7 years now.
There's a lot of kids my age that are racing. They start, 15. They start at 10 years old, which is about how old I was when I started. I actually started riding with my dad, and one day a guy came up to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in racing?" I said, "Sure, why not?" So I did one race and I was hooked. I'm actually part of a junior development team. We're based out of Atlanta, and we race all over the country. Actually, we're going to Pennsylvania for nationals. We'll send some guys to Labitibi and in Canada and other races like that. So yeah, it's really good.
Sponsors are important to us because they give us the money that we really need. Trips are expensive. Race fees cost about $80 a weekend, and then you've got 2 nights in a hotel, and that's another $100 or something, and it runs out real fast. So having a little bit of money from sponsors really helps us be able to sustain a racing season and go to all the races we need to go to.
Sponsors are important to us because they allow us to race, allow us to concentrate more on the racing without having to come up for the funding for the races. They also allow us to do some traveling, and part of our job as cyclists is to promote our sponsors to the other racers and the spectators to garner advertising for them.
Sponsors are important to us due to the expense of the sport, and just it gives you an identity, and it helps us identify ourselves as a team. In cycling, it's a little different. Instead of being like a NASCAR or a race car team where you're even a sports team where you're associated with a town or a certain management company. In cycling, we're actually associated by our sponsors.
So without sponsors, it would be impossible to do. With travel, hotels, entry fees, bikes, shoes, equipment, it gets very expensive very quickly. And without those sponsors, it would not be possible.
I mean, this is really just a hobby for us, so any sort of support we can get from the community and from sponsors really helps. So that's why we really need our sponsors.
Sponsors for us? Well, mainly we get great bikes from Cannondale, financial backing from H&R Block Financial Advisors, the shops that sponsor us, Addictive Cycles, they give us a lot of experience for our bikes that we work really hard on, and they get beat up, so we got to have somebody like H&R Block with a bike shop sponsor.
Yeah, and we're supporting probably 15 to 20 riders, and that gets expensive too, between your bikes and whether you're in parts, repairing those parts. So those sponsors are important to us to keep us going and keep us racing.
We're always looking for more.
And we like working with them because we feel like cycling and cyclists are a part of our demographic that's important to us, and we like the fun of being out here.
Southeast, the cycling is huge. So the Georgia Cup, with all the time and effort that they put into it, it builds community and fellowship with the people of the community towards people who usually don't get to these communities, like Savannah, South Georgia. We do a lot of races down there. So tourism is a big thing. We got several hundred people and families that go along with us. So it's great for, the Chamber of Commerce sees that, and it can't be a bad thing.
I'm new to Georgia. I've discovered a lot of great cities because of the Georgia Cup. It's also a very well-run series of races, one of the best in the country, I think. I've raced in a lot of different states. I've been racing for 10 years. And the Georgia Cup is very well-run, and the economic impact that it brings to those cities is very important to those cities.
The Georgia Cup is important to cycling in the Southeast because it's a grassroots venue for racers of all categories to get involved in the sport. So you've got from beginners all the way up to professionals competing in towns all over Georgia, and it'll bring people into the sport that otherwise may not have ever seen a bike race.
The Georgia Cup is important for cycling in the Southeast because it gives racers an opportunity to travel around the state, seeing different areas. I've seen areas of the state that I never would have been to, like Rome and Perry and Dahlonega, and so that makes it exciting to see different areas of the country and not just Atlanta.
Well, Georgia Cup is important for cycling in the Southeast. We have people coming from all over the Southeast traveling to Georgia just to race in the Georgia Cup. So having Georgia Cup continue year after year really helps, promote cycling in general.
The Georgia Cup provides a cohesive race series for Georgia. It allows the racers to compete for an overall prize and really gives the teams and the individual racers motivation. It also is important economically to the state and the cities where the races are held because it brings in revenues and tax revenues for those cities.
To not have these local races would mean that I wouldn't race. I mean, with a wife and a job, you can't get out and drive 6-7 hours to go into the Carolinas or to go into Alabama or Mississippi or wherever to race. So if the Georgia Cup weren't here, I wouldn't race.
Yeah, the Georgia Cup goes a long way to show off the small towns in Georgia. A lot of the downtown criteriums, give us, the guys from Atlanta, a chance to see some of the smaller towns that we never would have a reason to visit otherwise. So we get down there, helps the economy, and it's just a really fun way to spend a weekend.
I think the Georgia Cup is important to cycling in the Southeast because it's one of the bigger events throughout the Southeast, and it keeps the cyclists motivated to want to race and want to go out there and perform on local soil. And, regionally in the Southeast, there are not that many races, so the Georgia Cup really provides that level of racing for the local cyclists here in Georgia.